All right, so diving in today, we're tackling sanctuary cities, especially with that new ordinance in LA.
Yeah.
It's been in the news a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
You sent over a bunch of articles and studies, even some of your personal notes on this.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this a little. I mean, are they safe?
Right.
Are they good or bad for the economy?
Yeah.
And, like, how do they actually work?
Well, I think what's so interesting is that sanctuary cities, they really challenge a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
They force us to confront our ideas about immigration,
Right.
safety economics, all of it.
Yeah, you hear sanctuary city and some people think lawless zone, right?
Yeah.
But what does the data actually say about crime in these places?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting because
Okay.
studies show that on average, sanctuary cities actually have 35.5 fewer crimes per 10,000 people
Wow.
than non-sanctuary cities.
35.5 fewer crimes.
Yes.
That's a huge difference.
That's a statistically significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
That covers both violent and property crime.
I mean, it almost sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You'd think a city that limits cooperation with federal immigration enforcement would see more crime,
Right.
not less.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, a key factor seems to be trust
Okay.
between the immigrant community and law enforcement.
Right.
When undocumented immigrants aren't afraid to report crimes or cooperate with investigations, they're much more likely to do it
Makes sense.
if they don't fear being deported just for interacting with the police.
Right. So instead of hiding, they're more likely to be active in keeping their neighborhood safe.
Exactly.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
More trust,
Yeah.
more cooperation leads to lower crime.
Lower crime rates, exactly.
And the data shows that this translates to fewer violent deaths too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Not just feeling safer.
It's real.
It's like hard numbers.
Sanctuary cities see 27.1 fewer violent deaths per 10,000 people for white residents and 8.6 fewer for residents of color.
Okay, so that really debunks the crime magnet myth.
Uh-huh.
But I'm also seeing in your notes here concerns about the economics
Yeah.
of sanctuary cities.
Right.
Are they a drain on resources?
Yeah.
Or do they actually boost local economies?
It's complicated.
Okay.
There are definitely costs associated with providing services to undocumented immigrants.
Right.
Denver, for example, has spent $356 million on migrant care since 2022.
Wow. That is a big number.
Yeah.
I can see how some people would say, see, sanctuary cities are too expensive.
Yeah, but context is key.
Okay.
That $356 million represents about 8% of Denver's total budget for 2025.
Okay.
And when we look at the potential economic benefits,
Yeah.
it gets a lot more nuanced.
Okay, so let's talk about those benefits.
Okay.
What does the research say?
Well, studies have found that sanctuary cities tend to have higher median household incomes
Okay.
compared to non-sanctuary cities. We're talking about a difference of $4,353 per household
Wow.
on average.
Okay.
They also tend to have lower poverty rates,
Mm.
2.3% lower on average,
Mm-hmm.
and lower unemployment rates about 1.1% lower.
So it's not just about the cost of providing services.
Right.
It seems like they might actually be creating a more vibrant economy
Yeah.
that benefits everyone.
Yeah,
And then there's the issue of tax contributions from undocumented immigrants,
absolutely.
which is often overlooked in this whole debate.
Totally.
Yeah.
In 2022 alone, undocumented immigrants paid an estimated $46.8 billion in federal taxes
Wow.
and $29.3 billion in state and local taxes.
Huge.
On top of that, they contributed $22.6 billion to Social Security and $5.7 billion to Medicare.
Those are really big numbers.
Yeah.
It really highlights that these individuals are participating in the economy and contributing to its growth.
Absolutely. They're vital parts of our communities and our economy.
Right. And when you factor in the lower rates of reliance on public assistance in these cities, for example, 2.6% fewer households receiving SNIP benefits,
Right.
the economic argument becomes even stronger.
Yeah. It's compelling evidence.
Okay, so we've seen that sanctuary cities might actually be safer
Right.
and more economically prosperous
Mm-hmm.
than non-sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
But how do they actually work in practice?
Right.
I mean, they're defying federal immigration law.
Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of strategy.
Well, one key is targeted enforcement.
Okay.
So while they limit cooperation with federal immigration agencies in general,
Yeah.
they're still willing to work with them in cases involving serious crimes.
So it's not a complete refusal. It's
Right.
more like a prioritization of resources.
Yeah.
They're focusing on keeping their communities safe regardless of immigration status.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of how this works in a specific city?
Sure, let's look at Chicago.
Okay.
They've made it clear that they will detain undocumented individuals who are wanted on criminal warrants, have been convicted of serious crimes, or pose a clear and present threat to public safety.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Drawing a line between protecting vulnerable populations
Mhm.
and making sure that dangerous individuals are held accountable.
Right.
But how do they communicate these kind of nuanced policies
Wow.
to both citizens and undocumented immigrants?
Transparency is key.
Okay.
A lot of cities have official ordinances or laws
Right.
outlining their sanctuary policies, which are publicly available.
Okay.
City leaders often make public statements reaffirming their stance,
Mm-hmm.
and many cities provide information on their websites or through community outreach programs.
So it's about being upfront and clear about what their policies are
Exactly.
and how they're enforced?
For example, Chicago has a really helpful FAQ document on their website
Oh, cool.
that explains in plain language what it means to be a sanctuary city.
Okay.
And in Los Angeles, there are organizations like Share LA,
Okay.
the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of LA,
Right.
that work to make sure that everyone understands these policies.
So it sounds like effective communication is essential for building trust.
Yeah.
And making sure everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely.
But I imagine there are some serious challenges involved in implementing these policies,
Yeah.
especially in our current political climate.
Yeah, definitely.
What are some of the hurdles that sanctuary cities are facing?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is the potential loss of federal funding.
Right.
As you know, the Trump administration has threatened to withhold funds from cities that refuse to cooperate with immigration enforcement.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Hmm.
Potentially losing funding for things like law enforcement education, even healthcare.
Right.
That could really hurt these cities and everyone living there.
Absolutely. It could be devastating. And it's a tactic that's been used before
Right.
with mixed results.
Yeah.
Some cities have challenged these funding cuts in court successfully,
Okay.
but it's a long and expensive process.
So it's a real threat.
Oh, yeah.
It puts these cities in a difficult spot.
Yeah.
They want to do what's best for their communities,
Right.
but they could face these serious financial consequences
Yeah.
for standing their ground.
Mm-hmm.
What can they do to protect themselves from these threats?
Well, one strategy is diversifying their funding,
Okay.
so they're not so reliant on federal money.
Okay.
That might mean finding new revenue streams,
Right.
partnering with private organizations,
Right.
or even getting support from foundations.
Kind of building a safety net.
Exactly.
So they're not completely dependent on the federal government. What are some other challenges they face?
Another big one is misinformation
Okay.
and fear-mongering about sanctuary cities.
Right.
There's this rhetoric out there that paints them as dangerous,
Yeah.
lawless,
Well, right. Like we were saying before,
which just isn't true.
it's like they're trying to demonize these cities.
Uh-huh.
And the people who live there
Right.
using fear and exaggeration to undermine them, that's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it's tough for the people working so hard to make these cities welcoming and just...
Yeah, so clear communication is really important then, right?
It's so important.
To combat that.
Cities need to actively counter these narratives.
Okay,
They need to present the data,
right,
highlight the good things that come from their policies,
right.
and share stories about how those policies have helped people.
Yeah, it's about changing the story.
Exactly.
Shifting the focus from fear to the facts.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do that when there's so much noise?
It's a challenge, but
Right.
one way is to partner up
Sure.
with trusted community organizations,
Right.
faith leaders,
Mm-hmm.
local media,
Okay.
to get accurate information out there and counter the negative stereotypes.
So build alliances,
Yeah,
work together to make sure those voices are heard.
exactly. And also appeal to people's better nature.
Right.
Most people, when they see the facts,
Yeah.
they understand that immigrants are just people,
Yeah.
deserving of respect
Yeah.
and dignity.
It's humanizing the issue.
Yeah.
Reminding everyone we're talking about real lives,
Exactly.
not just political ideas.
It's about highlighting our shared values.
Yeah.
The things that unite us,
Yeah.
not the things that divide us.
Yeah. We all want safe and thriving communities.
Right.
We want a fair society.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, sanctuary cities are trying to do just that.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, but are there any bright spots?
Oh, yeah.
Anything that gives you hope for the future of sanctuary cities?
Absolutely. One great thing is the growing solidarity,
Okay.
the support they're getting
Yeah.
from other cities,
Okay.
states,
Right.
even other countries.
Like a ripple effect.
It is.
More and more people are realizing these policies are important
Yes.
and they're willing to defend them.
There's a network of support
That's great.
from organizations like the National Immigration Law Center,
Okay.
the ACLU,
Mm-hmm.
to mayors and governors all over who are speaking out against the federal government and standing up for immigrants.
So they're not alone in this.
Not at all.
They have allies who are with them.
Yeah, and it's important to remember this movement is about compassion,
Yeah.
empathy,
Right.
a belief in fairness and inclusion.
Right.
It's about everyone having the opportunity to thrive,
Yeah.
no matter their immigration status.
That's powerful, and it resonates with me.
Yeah.
What role do we as individuals play in this? What can we do to support these cities and the people living there?
That's a great question, and it's one we're going to be talking about more in the last part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
The data on safety and economics,
Mm-hmm.
the laws and politics.
Right.
But I think a lot of people listening are wondering what they can do.
Yeah,
It feels like such a big problem.
I get that.
Where do you even start?
Well, even small actions can make a difference
Okay.
when enough people take them.
Okay.
Like, you know those little waves
Right.
that keep hitting the shore?
Right.
They eventually change the coastline.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what are some of the waves we can create to support sanctuary cities?
No, well, first, stay informed.
Okay.
You've already done that by looking at all these sources.
Right.
But keep learning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Right.
So you got to be able to tell what's true and what's not.
Right. Because if we want to be good advocates, we need to know the facts.
Exactly.
So once we have that knowledge,
Yeah.
what's next?
Talk to people,
Oh, okay.
your friends,
Yeah.
family,
Mm-hmm.
coworkers.
Okay.
Share what you've learned.
Right.
Listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Try to find common ground.
I can see how that can be hard,
It can be.
especially these days.
Yeah. But even those difficult conversations can make a difference.
So you're saying these personal interactions, they can really have an impact?
They can. You're planting seeds of understanding,
Okay.
changing the story one conversation at a time.
And you never know who might be open to sharing what you have to say.
Exactly. Especially if it's coming from someone they trust.
Okay, so education,
Mhm.
conversation
Yeah.
are key. But are there more concrete things we can do
For sure.
that have like a real tangible impact?
Support the organizations doing the work on the ground.
Okay.
Groups like the National Immigration Law Center,
Right.
the ACLU,
Yeah.
local immigrant rights groups.
Okay.
They're fighting legal battles,
Mm-hmm.
providing services,
Right.
advocating for change,
Yeah.
your donations,
Okay.
your time,
Mm-hmm.
even just spreading the word about what they do.
Right.
It all helps.
So putting our money where our mouth is
Yeah, exactly.
and supporting the people on the front lines.
Yes, and don't forget about political action.
Right, of course.
Contact your elected officials.
Okay.
Let them know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Support candidates who are for immigrant rights.
Yeah.
Push for change at the federal level.
So making our voices heard.
When we speak up together,
Yeah.
we can really influence things.
But what about those who say that helping undocumented immigrants just encourages more people to come here illegally?
Yeah, that's a common argument,
Yeah.
but I think it's missing the point.
Okay.
Most of these people are just trying to make a better life
Right.
for themselves and their families.
Yeah.
They're not criminals.
Right.
They're our neighbors,
Yeah.
our coworkers, our friends.
And a lot of times they're contributing to our communities,
Absolutely.
paying taxes, working hard, raising families.
It's about recognizing their humanity,
Yeah.
understanding why they come here.
And remembering our history.
Exactly.
We're a nation of immigrants. It's who we are. Supporting immigrants, no matter their status,
Yeah,
is really upholding what this country is all about.
I agree with that.
So it's not just about helping people.
Mm.
It's about keeping the spirit of America alive.
Yeah, that promise of a better life.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
It's not just political.
Yeah.
It's moral.
it's about doing what's right.
Right.
Compassion, fairness, dignity.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has encouraged you to take action,
Yeah.
no matter how small.
Every bit counts.
Remember, stay informed,
Yeah,
stay involved,
keep fighting the good fight.
and keep working toward a more just and welcoming world for all.
Absolutely. Yeah, and